Hello, everyone.
Hello, Grandmaster.
In the Medicine Buddha Sutra, there's one thing mentioned by the Buddha that we often don't pay much attention to. What is it? It's called stinginess. Yes, that's how it is. For example, your mother is ill and needs money for medicine. As her child, you refuse to pay. You think earning money is not easy. This is unfilial and also stingy. For example, your child's school isn't very well equipped. Each family was asked to donate $10. The money goes into a fund for activities such as sports day. And then, there are parents who refuse to donate. Everything should be free because it's a public school. That's what they think. When they're asked to offer something to help, they just won't offer no matter how you try to convince them. I've also heard that the reason people won't offer is because they don't want to get scammed. That's the reason they're so determined to not offer anything at all. I believe, regardless of our wealth or status, regardless of our identity, regardless of the job or position we hold, in our lifetime, if we don't show enough love, it can be like living in hell. Sometimes, what often gives us endless motivation and happiness is having someone who loves you. Having someone who loves us motivates us to work hard and live well. Bonds such as friendships and family relationships bring us sunshine and motivation in life. They bring us happiness and joy. They give us the drive to endure hardships. Even when we are tired and weary, we still feel happy. We want to be happy because it'll make people who love us happier. So, if a person's life lacks love, it is a very unfortunate thing. Being poor is not a misfortune. Being without love is. The Buddha often spoke of sentient beings. What does it mean to be sentient? One can love when one has feelings. You're more loving when you have more positive feelings. Without positive feelings, there will be more hatred and worries. To have positive energy and happiness, you need to be more loving. If we broaden our hearts a bit more to everything in the world and show more love, of course, then we will be incredibly happy. Just a random stone you pick up will make you happy. You'll find it beautiful. And when you praise it, its energy will aid you. When you dislike it, its energy repels you. It might even hurt you. When I was a child, and maybe a teenager as well, I would accidentally hurt my hands or legs such that they bled. I would grab some dirt and gently rub it on my wounds to help stop the bleeding. As I rubbed the dirt on, I'd say, "It's okay, it's okay." In a moment, the bleeding will stop. With more practice, the wound would completely heal if you rubbed it longer. I just used some soil, that's it. I even stuck a leaf on my back as a back pain relief. I'd say, "Dear leaf, please relieve my back pain." After a while, the pain was gone. You might think I'm talking nonsense, but this is exactly how I do things. Love everything in the world with a loving heart. Everything and people, of course. Nowadays, many of you keep pets, right? You know, dogs, cats, etc. If you love them, they'll protect you and love you back. They bring you a lot of joy, don't they? Everything is like this. If you have a loving heart, you can feel the love from all things. This leads to a higher level state. People with such a state can use anything to heal. For example, a blade of grass. Yes, just pull out 2 blades of grass, and they become medicine. With blessings, grass can become medicine. To reach such a state, you have to love the whole world. I hope you can understand this. When you face the world with a loving heart, you'll help out willingly when your help is needed. If you're the opposite, you'd think making money is hard, right? For example, a farmer. Having spent almost a year to grow his crops, do you expect him to make offerings? He'd be reluctant to do so, right? It's okay, we understand. Today, earning money in the city also comes with immense pressure. The race to higher positions in the workplace is not easy. Then, you might come across some poor elderly person in the city. They're not scammers, they're just hungry. Then, out of vigilance, thinking that they're scammers, you decide not to help. Helping people in trouble is normal, right? But some people won't help no matter what. This is what we call stingy. They lack love in their hearts. They've no idea that loving the world would bring them happiness. That's how it is. Here's a line in the Medicine Buddha Sutra. Sakyamuni Buddha tells Manjushri Bodhisattva that there are beings that do not understand the principles of good and evil and karmic retribution. They only seek to satisfy their own greed and stinginess. Greed and stinginess are like twin brothers. They are bound together. Stinginess actually stems from greed. Of course, greed can also give rise to other evils. And if one doesn't know how to give, and does not understand the merits and blessings of giving, then they lack wisdom. It also lacks good roots, which we also call wisdom roots. Usually, the good roots, or wisdom, reflect the accumulation of a person's past lifetimes, and also whether their ancestors performed good deeds. The more our parents did good deeds, then the more wisdom we'll have. Good deeds like what? Revering the Buddhas, for example. The more such deeds are performed, the wiser their children would be. They'd be born with kindness. They would shed tears upon seeing a dead animal. Such children have deep wisdom roots and are less likely to walk the evil path. They love helping others and fear causing harm to others. Such people have a deep wisdom. They will attain enlightenment easily if they practice Buddhism. They'll easily gain spiritual power, wisdom, and supernatural abilities. Those who do not understand generosity are those who are greedy and stingy. They only know that if given the chance, they will focus solely on accumulating wealth. And they'll guard their wealth with everything they've got. Earning money is hard, so they often remind themselves and their family to not give anything to beggars. Seeing beggars makes them unhappy. And if a poor person is in their way, they'd feel troubled. Say, a wealthy man in a city was asked by the mayor to make a small donation. Then, he reluctantly donated some money. But that small donation, to him, is like losing a piece of his flesh. Stingy people detest the act of giving. They feel pain when giving something. There are many such people. The proportion is quite high. They accumulate a lot of wealth, but they are reluctant to use it. Many rich people have their treasure vaults. Their wealth is astronomical, but they still treat themselves poorly. They'll keep saving up and are unwilling to spend. They eat and dress like poor people. How do they treat their own family then? They're even more unwilling to spend on them. They don't spend on their wives. What about their children? They'd offer their children anything except their wealth. If this is how they treat their wives, children, and parents, imagine how they would treat their servants and the beggars. No way they'd spend a penny on them. Nothing is the only thing they'll offer. After such a person dies, they will be reborn in the realm of the hungry ghosts. Won't they reach paradise since they're so wealthy? No, the realm of hungry ghosts, or the animal realm. Many people wonder what the realm of hungry ghosts is like. A realm with just ordinary wandering spirits? Yes, and the spirits suffer there. There was a very powerful disciple of the Buddha. His name was Madhyana. His powers were extraordinary. His mother didn't do many good deeds. As a result, after she died, she fell into the realm of the hungry ghosts. With his spiritual powers, Madhyana saw his mother suffering in hell. His starving mother asked him for food because she'd starved to death many times. With his spiritual powers, Madhyana conjured up delicious food. When he attempted to feed her, the food would turn into flames or ashes before she could eat it. So, how could she eat that? Before he was able to feed her water and soups, they quickly turned into molten steel. You'll get burned if you drink those. This is just one of the torments in that realm. So, what can you do in the realm of hungry ghosts? Suffer, that's it. And once you enter, you are imprisoned for countless years. One day there is like a year on earth. It's long and torturous enough to drive you to death. This is the realm of the hungry ghosts.
Hello, Master. Why is it that once people earn a lot of money, they try every way to keep it, instead of spending it on themselves or their families and donating? Why do they become stingy?
Usually, when we talk about stingy people, we are usually referring to those who are relatively rich. Yes, that's how it is. Why do people become stingy? Let's just talk reality. Forget about karma for now. Let's just talk about our present lifetime. Back then, in China. That's where I was born. At that time, there weren't many rich people of our age, or even among those older than us. At that time, when we were teenagers, if a family could afford a motorcycle, we would consider them a rich family. They must have done something bad to get rich. That's what we'd say. At that time, starting your own business wasn't allowed. After the reform and opening up, some people started trying to do business, right? They began to utilize their business skills. They worked tirelessly. Indeed, some people became rich. After becoming rich, some people started to live lavishly, feasting and buying things they fancied. There are such people, I've seen them. But there is also another kind of people, quite a large group of people, I think. Among the wealthy in China today, at least more than half have saved a lot of money in the bank. The bank managers can confirm this. Despite being so wealthy, their quality of life is not much better than when they were poor as a child. They eat the same food every day, steamed buns, porridge, pickles, etc. Occasionally, they'd have boiled vegetables. Many people still maintain such personal living habits. They're good people with good morals and do not waste money. They don't simply spend on possessions such as sports cars. But they keep a lot of money in the bank. For what? Just in case. They run their own business, and it's full of risks. They could lose everything overnight if their business fails. And then, their family would starve. They fear this, and that's why they save a lot of money in the bank. No amount of money in their savings account is enough for them. They just keep saving, that's it. With more savings, they become rich. The reluctance to spend stems from a sense of crisis. They're constantly worried about the future.
Here's a story of the world's richest miser. Here's Paul Getty, one of the most iconic oil tycoons of the 1960s. Born in 1892, he grew up watching his father, which sparked his interest in getting involved in the oil industry. At 24, he established an oil company with his father's help. He became a millionaire. In 1930, his father, George Getty, passed away, leaving his son, Paul, an inheritance of $500,000. Paul was an extraordinary business genius. With his keen sense, he predicted opportunities in the oil industry during World War II. Constantly expanding his business empire, he even spread his business across the United States. Even in the Middle East, far across the ocean, he had oil fields. By 1957, Paul had reached the peak of his life. With a personal wealth of $1 billion, he was undoubtedly one of the richest men in the world at that time. At that time, most countries in the world did not have a GDP that high. His wealth rivaled that of nations. That's how wealthy he was at that time. The thing is, he did not spend lavishly like most rich people. Was this a virtue of his? No, he was a notorious miser. He was jokingly called the richest miser in the world. How stingy was he? To save on phone bills, he removed all the phone lines in his house, leaving only one payphone for communication. People visiting him had to pay to use that phone. You know, insert a coin to make a call, something like that. Imagine paying to make a call in a billionaire's house. Paul, as a billionaire, often had to socialize, right? But when he went out for business socializing, he would split the bill with his friends. He only paid for his own share. Even on dates with his girlfriend, he would do the same. Yes, he did that. His girlfriend had to pay for her own share. He never paid for anyone. So, his image as a miser was a joke among the wealthy circles. That was his way when he was with outsiders. What about his own family? He had 5 marriages in his lifetime. He had about 15 or 16 grandchildren. Among these grandchildren, there was one named John. The boy was kidnapped by the mafia. The kidnappers threatened to kill the boy if Paul didn't pay up. This was global breaking news at that time. The whole world was watching to see what Paul would do. Paul shocked the whole world by refusing to pay the ransom. With that many grandchildren, losing one didn't matter to him. His words shocked the entire world. You've met stingy people, but not one this stingy. Someone actually asked Paul about his decision to not pay the ransom. To which he famously replied, "If I pay 1 penny now, I'll have 14 kidnapped grandchildren." Maybe the kidnappers would go after his other grandchildren. That makes sense too. He chose not to bow to his enemies. Otherwise, his other grandchildren would face the same fate. That's what he said. But his grandson, John, thought he cared too much about his money. At one point, one of John's ears was cut off and mailed to his grandfather, with a note that said if he was not paying, then another ear would arrive. We all know how brutal the Italian mafia is. It wasn't until he received his grandson's ear that Paul finally lost his composure. They demanded a ransom of $17 million at first. For someone with $1 billion fortune, Paul could definitely afford $17 million. Like a business genius, Paul talked business and bargained with the kidnappers. He showed no fear that his grandson would be killed. Seeing that Paul was tough in his stance, the kidnappers lowered the ransom down to $2.9 million. It was a real business negotiation. In the end, the ransom was paid, with a 4% interest rate charged to his grandson. In other words, the kidnapped boy had to pay a part of his own ransom. He had such a unique grandfather. I feel sorry for the kidnapped boy.
The stingiest grandpa ever.
Seriously. His stinginess deeply influenced the entire family. His stinginess resulted in his descendants meeting unfortunate ends. They either turned to drugs or alcohol. His kidnapped grandson, John, after realizing what kind of a man his grandfather was, had his mindset twisted. He couldn't believe how cruel his grandfather was. Eventually, he also went astray.
That's what I'm talking about. This man lacked love for his grandson.
Indeed, too cold.
He loved his money, not his family.
Yes.
If his own grandson was treated this way, imagine an outsider.
Right.
What were his partners thinking?
Yes.
He asked to split the bill with his partners, right? Who would have thought about that? He was rich enough to rival a nation, right? He lacked love. He showed none. I think that he's a huge joke to the world. He lived a meaningless life. He was poor. The only thing he had was money, that's it. No one loved him. That's just how it was.
What a pity.
It's really a pity.
Master, look at this. The second and third generations of such wealthy people don't seem to benefit much from it.
With such a grandfather, how much warmth could his descendants feel? When they don't feel warmth, they might intentionally cause some trouble. For example, do drugs, or something worse, just to make you uneasy. They won't live a good life, that's for sure. Not all the second and third generations of the wealthy are like this. But still, many of them went astray. You see, running a business, managing, and making money, there's always a process, from nothing to something. From little to more, from small to large. This is how wealth gradually accumulates. In the process of earning and accumulating wealth, the person making money goes from having no money to having some money. Their mindset is slowly adapting from being poor to being rich. When their wealth reaches a certain height, their mind would no longer fluctuate, but calm down. That's when their wealth has reached a certain height. There will be a period called the wandering phase. If they can find a new height to climb, their wealth and state of mind will continue to ascend. If they can't do that, they will remain stagnant. That goes for their states of mind too. Stagnation is not a good sign. This is where people lose their direction. So, when wealthy people earn a certain level of wealth, they are no longer the poorest. They start living a moderately prosperous life. Maybe they can afford a bike or a small house. This they can achieve. When you go from being poor to reaching a new financial height, you need to reassess your mental state. When one becomes much wealthier than those around him, the mind is affected by the newfound wealth. This is where reconsideration is needed. Many people, after making some money, end up going astray. They don't go home early anymore. It's not business trips. It's meeting up with their good-for-nothing friends and doing drugs or gambling. When people become richer than they were before, they face a new threat. For example, their savings reach the mark of $1 million, from previously, say, $100,000 or $200,000. Such a leap blinds people, making some think they're the wealthiest. They become confused. As such, a period of readjustment is needed. If people don't readjust, they'd quickly become victims of their ignorance. If they don't free themselves from such ignorance, they'll fall and suffer painful injuries. Falling from grace leads to new troubles and disputes, such as divorces or mental illness. After reaching the peak, where do you go from there? It's like hiking. When you're halfway, there's still some way ahead if you keep going. What comes after the peak? It's all downhill, right? When you feel that your wealth has reached its highest point, you then start to descend. The descent is even more dangerous than the climb. When you were climbing, you didn't have much money, but when you're descending, you possess a great deal of wealth. Troubles, which are attracted by your wealth, will find you. After amassing immense wealth, some people think they should keep it, rather than donating some of it. As such, these people won't make offerings to those who need help or to the Buddhas. For them, they deserve to keep all their hard-earned money. Well, this is not wrong. But according to the Buddha, this is a big mistake. When you think you're too wealthy to listen to others, and that you're above others, you're finished. Some also stop doing good deeds. What happens when such people die from, say, a heart attack? They'd be succeeded by their children, right? Yes, they were very wealthy, but also stingy. I doubt they'd let their children participate in their business affairs when they were still alive out of the fear of being conned. I bet the children won't know how much money their father had, so they'd continue to live frugal lives. For example, their late father had made $20 million. His savings account had $19,500,000 left, because he didn't really spend on his family while he was still alive. Imagine how the man's children would react if they suddenly got their hands on so much money. How would they spend the money? They'd mostly spend it on all kinds of luxuries we can't even imagine. They'd buy anything, as long as it's expensive. Why? Because they can afford it. They can, because they've become rich suddenly. Why do the children behave as such? Because they've never managed so much money before. And with their father's passing, they become the rightful heir of the great wealth, with the person controlling how much money they get to spend gone. And with so much money at their disposal, they're the happiest people, albeit not knowing how to spend wisely. Spiritually, they cannot accommodate so much money. Previously, they only got $50 monthly as pocket money. Even they wanted to waste it, they couldn't. The dad was so awesome, wasn't he? With their dad gone, nothing is restricting the children's spending anymore. That's when they'll buy things they couldn't afford before. What caused such a spending spree? Think about it. Now you're an adult. And since you didn't have money when you were young, you worked hard to earn it, right? From having little to a lot of money, one's actions, behavior, mindset, and reaction time are all slowly adapting to such financial changes. Regardless of the extent of the changes, adaptation will take place. Now, imagine winning a jackpot and bringing home $20 million. Almost all who win their first lottery have a nosebleed when claiming their prize. The thrill of becoming a millionaire suddenly gets to them. This wealth is not earned through gradual accumulation, but suddenly. It can lead to the family squandering it. We've encountered this, especially in North America. We've met many wealthy young kids. Behind our center in Canada, there's a showroom of luxury cars. A group of young people from various countries used to gather there. Most of them were in their 20s, some even under 20. They drove those incredibly expensive cars. Each cost about hundreds of thousands of dollars. With modifications, more money would be spent. But speaking of this, I have met a few people who drove such expensive cars. I wanted to know what they were thinking. Nobody knew what I do, so I asked them why they buy such expensive cars. Apparently, those they drove were not the most expensive ones. Those were the cheapest variants. That's what I was told. One of the young men owned a high-tech business. This is someone I didn't know back then. But there was a young man who wanted to learn from me.
At that time, a father came to seek advice. He was very worried about his son's future. So with respect, he brought his child to Master and asked for guidance. The child was interested in antiques and world-class artworks. He planned to open a high-end art gallery and run a business selling famous paintings.
I asked the boy to choose another career. His plan would fail. Why so? Let me tell you why. Most of you who are here today, as well as our online followers, couldn't even afford a famous painting selling at a discounted price. If you're running a gallery, you can't just leave the paintings hanging for decades, waiting forever for them to be sold. How are you going to pay your rent? You need to sell at least 10 paintings to pay rent. When we talk about famous paintings, one painted by a third-rate painter, among the renowned ones costs around $10 million. People who sell and buy these paintings are insanely wealthy people. It takes a lot of money to buy one, even if it's painted by a third-rate painter among the truly famous ones. If you buy 10 paintings that cost $20 million each, you're going to pay $200 million. If people had that much money, wouldn't they spend on something more practical? Paintings can't fill your stomach, and you have to spend on air conditioning to maintain them. With your billions, you should buy something better than paintings and antiques. I told the boy his plan was a sign of karma burning the body. His dad had never brought him to our place to chant, and he'd never volunteered either. That's why he turned out like this. I said, I will give you a Dharma name, Zayajinshi, wealth destroyer. He's going to squander his dad's hard-earned millions. With so much money, he could do something else. Why start a business? To make money, right? Look, he had money, but he wanted to invest in an impractical business. If you were a 35-year-old young investor who owns your own business, you have my respect if you can keep it running for 5 years. It doesn't matter what you sell, paintings, toothpaste, or vegetables. As long as you don't lose money, it shows how much you've learned in business. Preserving your life is akin to preserving your wealth. It's not hard to understand. Impractical investments are gambles. When people tell us how profitable their investment projects are, from our perspective, it's not, but they think they can make money. From a wider viewpoint, it's their fate. But if we're talking about another case, for young people who have not seen a lot of money, or a young man who didn't have wealthy parents, and suddenly they get a lot of money, I don't think they're going to spend everything at once. What do young people like this really need? Perhaps elders who expose them to spiritual training or meditation, when they are still young, to cultivate their states of mind. This might help them a little. I'm not saying that it's the only way, but it'd help, more or less. They've never had such experiences. When a fortune suddenly comes, it'd surprise the experienced father, let alone the immature child. From the perspective of merit and karma, the karma fire burns the body. Imagine ants in a pot with fire underneath. What would happen to the ants? They'd become restless, right? They'd run around because of the heat, right? That's the fire of karma. To what extent does it burn? Until the family is broken and everyone dies. Rationally speaking, For young people who have never managed such great wealth, starting a big business is a risky investment. Even if we're wealthy, it's better to teach our children to cultivate auspiciousness, compassion, and love, rather than giving them a lot of money. Turn them into loving people who act with calmness. This is the only way to ensure our children's future is safe and auspicious. So, what should we leave for our children? Think about it, okay?
A stingy father.
There was an old man whom my family had known for some time. My dad helped him fix something. Then the interaction went on for a while. That old man, Zhang, was quite a stingy guy. He worked in the city. His wife also had her own job, so at that time, they lived on dual income. Life was pretty good, at least, they were not so poor. Zhang, again, was a stingy guy, a real penny pincher. They had 4 children, the youngest was 3, the oldest was 12 or 13. They were small, but they sure ate a lot. They were growing kids. After school, they would look for food everywhere. There were no refrigerators back then, so all the dry food had to be stored somewhere. In their home, one of the baskets for dry food was hung high on the beam. Zhang had to stand on a stool to hang it on the beam. The kids couldn't reach it, even if they teamed up. This would starve the kids. The couple often argued about this matter. One time, he came to visit us. Once, while having tea and chatting with my dad, he was taking out and eating roasted soybeans he'd brought from home. The loud munching sound caught my ears. I was in my teens at that time. So, I asked him what he was eating. So, he told me those were roasted soybeans. I asked him for some. There, he blushed and gave me 2 beans reluctantly. Yes, just 2 beans. He was that stingy. Eventually, after some time, his wife talked to us about this matter. The couple almost divorced over it. Apparently, Zhang bought some soybeans, roasted some, and hid the remaining portion. He kept some of the roasted ones in his pockets and ate them slowly. While he was at our place, his eldest son came home from school looking for him. Yes, because his dad was holding the house key. So, the boy came over to ask his dad for the key. When the boy appeared, Zhang immediately stopped eating. He even gestured to me like this, "Show." One lie after another just to cover up his stinginess. He treated all his children the same. There was no favorite child. He didn't love any of them. He only loved himself. You see, he wouldn't even share some beans with his children. He had no love for anyone. That's just the kind of person he was. Once, his bicycle had a big puncture in the tire. Yes, bicycle. At that time, there were no motorcycles or cars. He went to get it fixed. The repairman said forget about fixing. The tire was completely worn out. It was dangerous. The tire could burst at any moment. It didn't need fixing, because nothing could be fixed. So, what did Zhang think? For a stingy guy like Zhang, There was no way he would buy a new tire. So, what did he do? The bicycle shop had old tires waiting to be sold to recyclers. All of them were unusable. He took one of those and asked the repairman to fix it on his bicycle. That's what he did.
He was not only a stingy man, but also a cheapskate.
He used to go to the park alone without bringing his kids. What kind of father is that? That's the kind of person he was. He'd buy meat outside but wouldn't bring it home to share with his family. That's the kind of person he was. He wouldn't have done all these things if he were a loving person. Look at how he treated his own children. As parents, naturally, when there's good food, you'd think of your children first, right? If your elders are still around, you also need to support them, right? This man, Zhang, kept everything good for himself. He was not a very wealthy person. But what he lacked was genuine love that a person should have. He was poor because he didn't have that. The way he acted shows how poor he was. Nothing else mattered to him except money. He had no love for his wife and children who loved him. They didn't matter to him. In his life, only money mattered. He was spiritually poor, and that's why he was not happy. Back to the sutra, the Buddha also says that there is hope after all for a greedy and stingy person. In the realm of hungry ghosts or hell, if they could recall the name of the Medicine Buddha they'd heard of while living in the human world, then, just by thinking of it, they could immediately escape from the realm of hungry ghosts and hell and be reborn into a wealthy family or a poor family. They can be reincarnated as humans. Once these people are reborn as humans again, their stinginess is completely transformed. Because the suffering they endured in hell is deeply imprinted on their consciousness, they'd be reborn as humans with qualities opposite to their stinginess and greed. They'd become generous and charitable too. They understand that such stinginess leads to immense suffering in the future. So, they begin to embrace righteousness and love Buddha. Then they'll be willing to give and love all beings. This is what they'll start to become. Personal pleasures and various kinds of enjoyment no longer appeal to them. They lose interest in saving money for themselves. These don't matter to them anymore. If they're capable enough to become rich, they shall continue to give willingly. Their accumulated merits will be as high as the sky. Then, in the future, they may awaken, even attain perfect enlightenment. This is what will happen to them. This is the Buddha's message for everyone who is destined to be here. You're blessed even if you attend only one lesson.
Received.
Having heard of the Medicine Buddha Sutra can help you if you've been banished to hell. If you've heard of the sutra or the name of Medicine Buddha, when you were still a human, you will remember it and be saved. And then, you will be freed from hell. Your parents and your children will be inspired too, if they have listened to the content of the sutra even just once. The sutra is all about the fundamental wisdom of being a human. Now, for ourselves, and for all the people we love, may the future and the lifetimes after this be blessed with goodness and auspiciousness. May all bad karma and sins be gone. Let's chant with utmost sincerity. Let's begin. 被看见，马哈被看见，人在沙漠，嘎地梭哈，天堂红被看见，被看见。马哈被看见，人在沙漠，嘎地梭哈，天堂红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见。人在沙漠，嘎地梭哈，天堂红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，人在沙漠。嘎地梭哈，天堂红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，人在沙漠，嘎地梭哈。天堂红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，人在沙漠，嘎地梭哈，天堂红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，人在沙漠，嘎地梭哈，天堂红被看见。被看见，马哈被看见，人在沙漠，嘎地梭哈，天堂红被看见，被看见。马哈被看见，人在沙漠，嘎地梭哈，天堂红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见。人在沙漠，嘎地梭哈，天堂红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，人在沙漠。嘎地梭哈，天堂红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，人在沙漠，嘎地梭哈。 点他吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则兰扎萨摩卡对梭哈点他吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则兰扎萨摩卡对梭哈点他吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则兰扎萨摩卡对梭哈点他吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则兰扎萨摩卡对梭哈点他吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则兰扎萨摩卡对梭哈点他吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则兰扎萨摩卡对梭哈点他吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则兰扎萨摩卡对梭哈点他吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则兰扎萨摩卡对梭哈点他吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则兰扎萨摩卡对梭哈点他吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则兰扎萨摩卡对梭哈点他吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则兰扎萨摩卡对梭哈点他吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则兰扎萨摩 地梭哈，颠他吽贝堪则，贝堪则，玛哈贝堪则，兰扎萨摩，嘎地梭哈。颠他吽贝堪则，贝堪则，玛哈贝堪则，兰扎萨摩，嘎地梭哈，颠他吽贝堪则，贝堪则，玛哈贝堪则，兰扎萨摩，嘎地梭哈，颠他吽贝堪则，贝堪则，玛哈贝堪则，兰扎萨摩，嘎地梭哈，颠他吽贝堪则，贝堪则，玛哈贝堪则，兰扎萨摩，嘎地梭哈，颠他吽贝堪则，贝堪则，玛哈贝堪则，兰扎萨摩，嘎地梭哈，颠他吽贝堪则，贝堪则，玛哈贝堪则，兰扎萨摩，嘎地梭哈，颠他吽贝堪则，贝堪则，玛哈贝堪则，兰扎萨摩，嘎地梭哈，颠他吽贝堪则，贝堪则，玛哈贝堪则，兰扎萨摩，嘎地梭哈，颠他吽贝堪则，贝堪则，玛哈贝堪则，兰扎萨摩，嘎地梭哈，颠他吽贝堪则，贝堪则，玛哈贝堪则，兰扎萨摩，嘎地梭哈，颠他吽贝堪则，贝堪则，玛哈贝堪则， 伦扎萨姆卡迪梭哈殿塔吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则伦扎萨姆卡迪梭哈殿塔吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则伦扎萨姆卡迪梭哈殿塔吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则伦扎萨姆卡迪梭哈殿塔吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则伦扎萨姆卡迪梭哈殿塔吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则伦扎萨姆卡迪梭哈殿塔吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则伦扎萨姆卡迪梭哈殿塔吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则伦扎萨姆卡迪梭哈殿塔吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则伦扎萨姆卡迪梭哈殿塔吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则伦扎萨姆卡迪梭哈殿塔吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则伦扎萨姆卡迪梭哈殿塔吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则伦扎萨姆卡迪梭哈殿塔吽贝堪则 被看见，玛哈被看见，人在沙漠，卡迪索哈，天堂红被看见，被看见。玛哈被看见，人在沙漠，卡迪索哈，天堂红被看见，被看见，玛哈被看见。人在沙漠，卡迪索哈，天堂红被看见，被看见，玛哈被看见，人在沙漠。卡迪索哈，天堂红被看见，被看见，玛哈被看见，人在沙漠，卡迪索哈。天堂红被看见，被看见，玛哈被看见，人在沙漠，卡迪索哈，天堂红被看见，被看见，玛哈被看见，人在沙漠，卡迪索哈，天堂红被看见。被看见，玛哈被看见，人在沙漠，卡迪索哈，天堂红被看见，被看见。玛哈被看见，人在沙漠，卡迪索哈，天堂红被看见，被看见，玛哈被看见。人在沙漠，卡迪索哈，天堂红被看见，被看见，玛哈被看见，人在沙漠。卡迪索哈，天堂红被看见，被看见，玛哈被看见，人在沙漠，卡迪索哈。 点他红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，人在沙漠，卡迪梭哈，点他红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，人在沙漠，卡迪梭哈，点他红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，人在沙漠，卡迪梭哈，点他红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，人在沙漠，卡迪梭哈，点他红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，人在沙漠，卡迪梭哈，点他红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，人在沙漠，卡迪梭哈，点他红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，人在沙漠，卡迪梭哈，点他红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，人在沙漠，卡迪梭哈，点他红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，人在沙漠，卡迪梭哈，点他红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，人在沙漠，卡迪梭哈，点他红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，人在沙漠，卡迪梭哈，点他红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，人在沙漠。 所好，颠他红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，兰扎萨摩，卡迪所好，颠他红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，兰扎萨摩，卡迪所好，颠他红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，兰扎萨摩，卡迪所好，颠他红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，兰扎萨摩，卡迪所好，颠他红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，兰扎萨摩，卡迪所好，颠他红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，兰扎萨摩，卡迪所好，颠他红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，兰扎萨摩，卡迪所好，颠他红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，兰扎萨摩，卡迪所好，颠他红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，兰扎萨摩，卡迪所好，颠他红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，兰扎萨摩，卡迪所好，颠他红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，兰扎萨摩，卡迪所好，颠他红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见， 伦扎萨姆卡迪苏哈电塔红贝堪杰贝堪杰玛哈贝堪杰伦扎萨姆卡迪苏哈电塔红贝堪杰贝堪杰玛哈贝堪杰伦扎萨姆卡迪苏哈电塔红贝堪杰贝堪杰玛哈贝堪杰伦扎萨姆卡迪苏哈电塔红贝堪杰贝堪杰玛哈贝堪杰伦扎萨姆卡迪苏哈电塔红贝堪杰贝堪杰玛哈贝堪杰伦扎萨姆卡迪苏哈电塔红贝堪杰贝堪杰玛哈贝堪杰伦扎萨姆卡迪苏哈电塔红贝堪杰贝堪杰玛哈贝堪杰伦扎萨姆卡迪苏哈电塔红贝堪杰贝堪杰玛哈贝堪杰伦扎萨姆卡迪苏哈电塔红贝堪杰贝堪杰玛哈贝堪杰伦扎萨姆卡迪苏哈电塔红贝堪杰贝堪杰玛哈贝堪杰伦扎萨姆卡迪苏哈电塔红贝堪杰贝堪杰玛哈贝堪杰伦扎萨姆卡迪苏哈电塔红贝堪杰 被看见，马哈被看见，人在沙漠，卡迪索哈，天堂红被看见，被看见。马哈被看见，人在沙漠，卡迪索哈，天堂红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见。人在沙漠，卡迪索哈，天堂红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，人在沙漠。卡迪索哈，天堂红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，人在沙漠，卡迪索哈。天堂红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，人在沙漠，卡迪索哈，天堂红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，人在沙漠，卡迪索哈，天堂红被看见。被看见，马哈被看见，人在沙漠，卡迪索哈，天堂红被看见，被看见。马哈被看见，人在沙漠，卡迪索哈，天堂红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见。人在沙漠，卡迪索哈，天堂红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，人在沙漠。卡迪索哈，天堂红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，人在沙漠，卡迪索哈。 点他吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则兰扎萨姆卡迪梭哈点他吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则兰扎萨姆卡迪梭哈点他吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则兰扎萨姆卡迪梭哈点他吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则兰扎萨姆卡迪梭哈点他吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则兰扎萨姆卡迪梭哈点他吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则兰扎萨姆卡迪梭哈点他吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则兰扎萨姆卡迪梭哈点他吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则兰扎萨姆卡迪梭哈点他吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则兰扎萨姆卡迪梭哈点他吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则兰扎萨姆卡迪梭哈点他吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则兰扎萨姆卡迪梭哈点他吽贝堪则贝堪则玛哈贝堪则兰扎萨姆 所好，天塔红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，兰扎萨姆，卡迪所好，天塔红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，兰扎萨姆，卡迪所好，天塔红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，兰扎萨姆，卡迪所好，天塔红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，兰扎萨姆，卡迪所好，天塔红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，兰扎萨姆，卡迪所好，天塔红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，兰扎萨姆，卡迪所好，天塔红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，兰扎萨姆，卡迪所好，天塔红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，兰扎萨姆，卡迪所好，天塔红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，兰扎萨姆，卡迪所好，天塔红被看见，被看见，马哈被看见，兰扎萨姆，卡迪所好。All right, palms together. Gratitude to the compassionate Medicine Buddha. May these merits bless and protect all our relatives, friends, and ancestors. May they all be blessed and auspicious. May our children be intelligent, wise, healthy, happy, and successful in their studies, as well as career.
Received.
May they have a happy marriage.
Received.
Also, health and longevity.
Received. Thank you, Grandmaster. There was a stingy couple. They borrowed a few $1,000s from their old father. They never repaid it. While the old father was still alive, he asked the couple to pay it back many times, but to no avail. Later, the couple both fell seriously ill. The man got lymphoma, and the woman got breast cancer. Eventually, they both passed away. Their only child became addicted to gambling, leading the family to complete ruin. Master, is this outcome a result of their karma?
They obtained wealth they shouldn't have got. I call that ill-gotten gains. If it's not given to them, then they shouldn't take it. Or, if they were unfilial while he was alive, and took his money after he died, then that money would become their nightmare. Good fortune can become disaster, and vice versa. This is unpredictable. I won't call that dirty money. For me, it looks clean. But there is wealth that, if you're not careful, could take away what you originally owned. What do you call such wealth?
A disaster.
Such wealth is here to take away everything. Everything, all your money included.
Right.
I'll say this again. You still need the right virtue to hold such great wealth. Only then can you enjoy such prosperity. Virtue is the foundation. It's like building a skyscraper. To build a tall building, you need a deep foundation. It should be strong enough to withstand strong pressure. You can't build a 10-story building with a 1-meter deep foundation. Don't live in such a building. It could collapse at any time. This is a fact. You need a lot of merits. To accumulate them, it starts with chanting and offering for the first time. It doesn't matter who you offer to, the Buddhas, monks, or beggars. These are all meritorious acts. Parents need to learn to do it themselves, and also guide their children to do it. Do this if you want your children to grow up to be successful and stay on the right path. For your children, even if they're 35, if they could stay on the right path and do no evil, that is already a blessing for you. You should guide your children to do good deeds, to be kind and compassionate.
Besides teaching children to do good, we may also use symbolic items to convey these values. For example, incense burners. What do they represent in Chinese culture?
Right, an incense burner. In ancient China, there was a legend. It wasn't folklore, it was true to a certain extent. More than 2,000 years ago, Jiang Ziya helped King Wen of Zhou to become the founding king of the Chinese Zhou dynasty. He held a steel artifact. Do you know what it's called? It's called the mountain driving whip. He also had a book called The Investiture of the Gods. Jiang Ziya was a Taoist sage. He achieved enlightenment. Then, his master asked him to leave and to restore the purity of the land. His master gave him a destination, and off he went. Later, he met King Wen of Zhou. After meeting King Wen, he helped him, much like Zhuge Liang helped Liu Bai. He explained profound principles to King Wen, who was deeply impressed. King Wen immediately appointed him prime minister. like the premier of the state council. All major affairs would be under Jiang's control. Jiang was also the Grand Marshal, the overseer of the troops. Before Jiang's arrival, King Wen longed for a wise and intelligent advisor. You know, like Zhuge Liang. At that time, the family of King Wen obtained 9 large bronze cauldrons. There was a legend at the time. He who gets the 9 cauldrons gets the world. This is a fact. There's a record of this. Everyone knows Qin Shi Huang, right? Qin Shi Huang's great-great-grandfather had a brother with immense strength. He succeeded his father after the old king passed away. King Wu of Qin was strong but lacked wisdom. No one could beat him in fights. Once, he led his troops and fought all the way to Hunan province, from Xi'an in Shaanxi province. In Hunan province, there was a place called Chaoga at the time. There were hundreds of kilometers in between. They fought all the way and met with the ruler of the time, a descendant of King Wen of Zhou. Let's just call him Emperor Zhou. When King Wu saw Emperor Zhou, he thought the man was very weak. He was going to say, "I could crush you easily." He didn't say that, but he was arrogant and kept showing off his strength. Seeing the number of soldiers his guest had brought, Emperor Zhou asked, "Are you strong?" King Wu wanted to prove his might, so he attempted to lift one of the cauldrons. They moved to the backyard where the cauldrons were at. King Wu then lifted a cauldron with all his might. After finally lifting it up, he put it down and immediately spat out blood. He had overexerted himself. He died 3 days later. This is a true historical event. Yes, an ancestor of Qin Shi Huang. What a foolish king. The one with the 9 cauldrons shall rule the world. That's the legend. With the 9 cauldrons, one becomes the emperor. Another legend is that possessing the imperial seal makes you a king. These are the 2 legends of kingship. Everyone knows what an imperial seal is. Who first passed it down? It started with King Wen of Zhou. Then, it reached the hands of Qin Shi Huang. Then, it was Liu Bang, the emperor of the Han dynasty. That's the way. Whoever possesses it rules the world. Later, the Chinese made imitations of the cauldrons. There are round and square ones. Some have beautiful shapes. The incense burners imitate the cauldrons. They're miniatures of the cauldrons to be placed at home. We don't call them cauldrons now, we call them incense burners. You place lit incense in it. What do they symbolize if placed in the study? Successful children with power, influence, and wealth. They're mainly known as a symbol of power. This is not the smallest. There are even smaller ones. Yes, as small as a walnut, it's true. The Chinese know what the rising smoke of a lit incense symbolizes. Prosperity, right? What do you see in a prosperous family? Prosperous and successful descendants. To have that, first, you need to have children. Strong and capable children, okay? Capable children will achieve great things in the future. This is the reason for making offerings to an incense burner. Once they're brought home, they're never sold but passed down. All my incense burners are old. This one was made during the Qin dynasty, about 200 years old. Most are made of a bronze alloy. After so many years, they're still shiny. Some have a reddish copper color, some are a bit darkened. They are all alloys. They're crafted using different alloys with unique qualities and appearances. Some are also called golden incense burners. When they're new, they look golden. It's a symbol of a future with great wealth and high status. People could become high officials, wealthy merchants, or renowned figures of their generation. If they're not wealthy, they'd become knowledgeable scholars. The future of young people is limitless and full of potential. This incense burner is passed down to our descendants, with so many beautiful meanings. All right, that's all for today. I wish you health and longevity.
Received.
Also, good fortune.
Received.
Also, happiness and joy.
Received.
Also, family harmony.
Received.
Tomorrow, at the same time, another more exciting lesson awaits.
Thank you, Grandmaster.
Now it's time for our closing exercise. Rub your palm until they're warm. Glide your palms over your face from chin to forehead to cheek without actually touching them. Rub your palms until they're warm. Part your fingers and firmly comb your hair from forehead to the back of the neck. Rub your palms. Pat your entire body from top to bottom. Pat your head firmly with relaxed wrists. Do it calmly. Pat your left shoulder. Then pat your right shoulder. Continue to pat your chest. Then pat your left armpit down to the side of your rib cage. Switch to the right. Pat your right armpit down to the side of your rib cage. Next, pat your abdomen with relaxed hands. Please stand up slowly. Pat down from the front of your thighs, knees, shins, ankles, and tops of your feet. Gently pat the lower back, down to the buttocks, down to the back of your thighs, calves, ankles, and heels. Continue to pat the inside and outside of your legs. Start with your left leg. Relax your wrists and pat with slight force. Then pat your right leg. Continue to pat your arms. Start with your left arm. Then pat your right arm. After patting your entire body, rub your palms. Gently massage your whole body without actually touching it. Visualize that you are gently sweeping away the dust and worries. You are becoming healthy and happy. At the same time, think, I'm closing this meditation practice.
Today's class has successfully completed. See you tomorrow.
Medicine Buddha shines the great light of compassion and wisdom across countless worlds, safeguarding all sentient beings. Sincerely offering lights to Medicine Buddha invites his love and guidance, dispels harm and extends life, transforms misfortune, eliminates worries, and brings health and happiness. Please visit the Bodhi Meditation College website to make the light offering. The light offerings for the living are: Connect with Medicine Buddha, and Medicine Buddha Loves Me Wish-Fulfilling Lights, and Auspicious Longevity Illumination Light. May Medicine Buddha protect our living loved ones, granting them a life of auspiciousness, happiness, and illumination. The light offering for the departed is the eternal residence in the Eastern Pure Land light. Pray for Medicine Buddha to guide the departed loved ones, so they may attain liberation and reside in the Eastern Lapis Lazuli world, peaceful and at ease.
人生就此欢喜。我快乐了，我健康了，我幸福了。